He was 18. Imagine having this responsibility, this weight on your shoulders at 18 years old. Hi and welcome to History Legends. In this video, we'll do a step-by-step historical breakdown of one of the most iconic pictures of the Vietnam War. Honestly, at first, I only wanted to do a 60-second TikTok about it. But there was simply too much to say about this one picture, and I had to tell you all of it. So here it is, one of the most iconic pictures of the Vietnam War. I am certain that you've already seen it somewhere. This shot was taken on October 5th, 1966, close to a mud-splattered hill nicknamed Mutter's Ridge by the Marines, just south of the DMZ, the Demilitarized Zone, the area that separated North Vietnam from the South. Honestly, I find this one frame fascinating. Keep in mind, there was still the entire civil rights movements going on in the United States, and Martin Luther King Jr. was still alive. Oops, spoiler alert. This picture was considered so controversial at the time that Life magazine only published it in 1971. Yet, here you don't see black or white. All we see are Marines. One of them has a blood-stained bandage on his head. I present you Gunnery Sgt. Jeremiah Purdy. Now, despite his own wounds, he's reaching out to his wounded captain as the ultimate sign of brotherhood. But sadly, only one of them would make it out alive. But before I tell you, let's talk a bit about who Jeremiah Purdy was. He was born in March 1931, the last of 7 children. His mother died a few weeks later due to birth complications. At just 17 years old, he joined the Marines and even fought a few weeks at the very end of the Korean War. That means he was one of the first African Americans to serve in a desegregated United States Armed Forces. That's right, in 1948, President Truman instated Executive Order 9981. It took some time for it to be fully applied, but that was the stepping stone. That basically meant that whatever your ethnicity, everyone fought in the same combat unit. After spending over a decade in the Marines, Sergeant Jeremiah Purdy found himself very far from home. At 35 years old, as part of 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines, he took part in Operation Prairie. The objective of this mission was preventing enemy infiltration of the DMZ and the Ben Hai River, and determining the extent of their infiltration. Now this is where things get serious. The attack on Mutter's Ridge started on September 22nd, 1966. After bombarding a false target area, Marine CH-46 helicopters landed troops from the 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines, 2 miles east of the New Kai Chi Ridge. 2 miles doesn't seem a lot, but the Marines had to advance through extremely dense jungle just to begin the assault on the bridge. They had to cut through a narrow path through foliage, a canopy of bamboo and tall trees. That means it's hot, humid, muddy, and a ton of mosquitoes. You're exhausted, you can't take it anymore, and you haven't even started the battle yet. Now, over the next 2 weeks, the battalion engaged the North Vietnamese army in a series of firefights for the dominance over the hills. There was a lot of back and forth, and you can imagine how morale was impacted. Now comes the big day. 10 a.m., the 5th of October, 1966. Company M assaulted for the second time Hill 484. This is after this assault that this picture was taken. But as you can see, Sergeant Purdy and Captain Carroll were not alone that day. On the far left of the picture, there is a young man. 18-year-old Navy corpsman Ron Cook. Ron Cook was basically a medic assigned to Kilo Company. After days of fighting, Hill 400 was secured, and the engineers carved out a landing pad between Hill 400 and Hill 484. This is the area that was called Mutter's Ridge. While other units pushed on the assault, Ron Cook's K Company stayed behind to evacuate the wounded and regroup. He remembers how his unit struggled not just against the enemy, but also against the non-combat horrors of Vietnam. Disease-carrying mosquitoes, huge leeches, and poisonous snakes were always a danger. And the constant rain every day meant that everything was wet all the time. Now there's something that Ron Cook said that I thought was traumatizing. I quote, "We were put under the most stressful situations. I mean, when you're an 18-year-old kid and they hand you 56 Marines and they tell you, here, keep them alive if you can. And the ones you can't, we'll just tag and bag and send them home to their mothers." He was 18. Imagine having this responsibility, This weight on your shoulders at 18 years old. What were you doing at 18? This is insane. Luckily, Ron Cook finished his tour, and here we can see a picture of him, his older self, with the original picture. Oh, the picture, that's right, almost forgot. How about we talk about the man that actually took that picture? He was a quiet English journalist named Larry Burrows, and I have to tell you about him very quick, because I'm sure you know him, or rather, you've seen his shots. Marines recover a fallen comrade while under fire with photographer Catherine Leroy. Crew Chief Lance Corporal James C. Farley Manning, helicopter machine gun of Yankee Papa 13. An exhausted American infantry soldier lies on the ground among comrades and drinks from a canteen near the Cambodian-Vietnamese border in 1970. U.S. Army Captain Robert Bacon leads a patrol during the early years of the Vietnam War in 1964. A bayonet-wielding South Vietnamese paratrooper threatens a captured Viet Cong suspect during interrogation. Burrows was one of the official photographers of the Vietnam War. Basically, he stayed there from 1962 until his death in 1971, when his helicopter was shot down over the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Laos. It took until April 2008 before the helicopter wreckage and the bodies were found. Now, if you thought that this story was getting complicated, it's getting better. We all love social media, right? To an extent. One day, a man called Jerry Hadley was just browsing on Facebook and then noticed a photo on the Vietnam War page. And this is when he just yelled out, "That's my father with his hand reaching out." That's right. And here I present you the other protagonist in this picture. The man with the glasses holding Jeremiah Purdy's shoulder. I present you then 19-year-old Jerry Hadley from Alabama. Alabama, you see the connection? I'm telling you, the story is getting crazy. And you also remember him from this picture. He's second on the right. And here's a picture of Jerry in 2020 with his son Joey. Now, even though Marines usually use corpsmen as medical specialists, Hadley actually went through the Army's combat medic training, got mid-level security clearance, and completed survival school. And because of all of this, the Marines picked him as their doc. Now, he doesn't remember the exact moment the picture was taken. However, he does remember that there was a medical aid station on Mutter's Ridge. They had some of their Marines killed there. While they were at the station, they came under heavy mortar fire. All he remembers is that as a medic, all he could do was to stay alive and save as many wounded as possible. He also said the only man in the picture he can remember is Sergeant Jeremiah Purdy. Oh yeah, right, Purdie. I never told you the end of his story. Purdie did 3 tours in Vietnam and won 3 Purple Hearts. Now, the only reason he couldn't go back for a 4th tour is that by law, once you're awarded 3 Purple Hearts, you're out of the armed forces. So that's how he left the Marines in 1968 and found his way as a district manager for a shoe chain in Sacramento, California. And he died of a heart failure in 2005 at the age of 74. That could be the end of his story, but that would mean we'd be missing on something huge. Listen to this. Something insane happened in 1982. Here we can see Purdie, Jeremiah Purdy. In November 1982, he's reaching out his hand, like in the picture, to the name of Captain Carroll, inscribed on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. And guess who took that picture? Larry Burrows' son, Russell Burrows. Honestly, just whoa. And now a few words about Captain Carroll. The fighting on the 5th of October 1966 left dozens of NVA bodies, while the Marines had lost 32 killed or wounded. Now, the tragedy is that 4 of these fatalities and 9 wounded were caused by friendly fire. 2 rounds of a Marine tank hit the hill the Marines attacked by mistake. Of those killed by the tank was 29-year-old Company K Commander Captain James J. Carroll. He was later posthumously awarded the Navy Cross for Valor on Hill 484. When you read some of his actions, you can see how much of a badass he was. And here's what was said about him. By his outstanding leadership, unlimited courage, and utmost devotion to duty, Captain Carroll reflected great credit upon himself and upheld the highest traditions of the Marine Corps and the United States Naval Service. I'm going to read you some of his acts of courage. On September 27th, Captain Carroll quickly seized a piece of high ground and utilizing it for a temporary landing zone was able to evacuate his wounded quickly and establish a company defense position from which he could attack the determined and well-fortified enemy bunkers that defended Hill 400. The next day, on September 28th, Captain Carroll and 7 of his Marines crawled to within hand grenade range of the enemy, aggressively and decisively launching the final assault and gaining a quick foothold on the hill. He employed the rest of his company to aid in securing the objective, then under heavy counterattack from 3 sides. All this, he led his men despite a painful wound from an enemy mortar round. This is just a glimpse of what he did in Vietnam, and I hope this video will make not only the memory of Captain James Carroll last, but also of Jeremiah Purdy, Ron Cook, and Jerry Hadley. That's all I have for you today. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of this reaction video. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to help me create more content, consider joining my Patreon. The link is in the description.